Boom. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and this is episode 276, another awesome edition of the Double J Jedi Talk with Joshua Treadaway. What's up, Dave?
What's up, guys?
So I got a little tongue twisted there. I had all kind of thoughts in my head, and it all came out as a blah, 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 blah. So,
well, we mentioned a couple different names, so I wasn't sure which one you were going to go with.
Right. Well, the Double J Jedi Talk is actually what I put on the tagline for the last episode. This is our third Jedi discussion. Well, it's funny that I call it Jedi when it's really about the Mandalorian. I mean,
right, but you know, it goes with the name very well.
Right, it just kind of rolls off the tongue in a weird way. We'll come up with something better, I'm sure, along the way. But season 2, episode 7 was this past Friday. So if you're listening to this now and you haven't seen season 2, episode 7 of The Mandalorian, watch it first and then listen to this conversation, because this is going to be us spoiling the whole thing because we watched it and we're geeks and we like to talk about it. And if you're listening to this, you're like, I am too. Well, then welcome along. We're glad to have you here. Okay, so first off, the episode involves Bill Burr, which we explained in the last episode. I was excited about seeing Bill Burr come back. And I actually had to go online and look up his name, Miggs Mayfield. I didn't know that was his name. I'd heard him say it a few times, but it's one of those things where whenever they have characters come through, there's so many names that come at you. You're like, what was their name again? Like, I had to write down names because I was like, I hear them say these names, but it doesn't stick with me. Not like the main characters, not like Boba Fett or, you know what I mean? So Miggs Mayfield, I actually looked up on Wikipedia today, Miggs Mayfield, and apparently he's mentioned in the KOTOR universe, the video game. There's a game that's called Battlefront 2.
Okay, I have that actually.
Which actually has something to do with Operation Cinder. And then I had to Google Operation Cinder because there's a conversation that he has there with this Imperial officer by the name of Valen Hess. He served under Valen Hess.
Right. That's actually the conversation he had on the show.
Yeah. So this Operation Cinder was supposedly sent out by Palpatine as in case I die, I want every world to burn kind of rhetoric. So after the Return of the Jedi, which is, where you see Darth Vader throw Palpatine down the shaft, the word apparently is put out that, okay, enact Operation Cinder, which is having something to do with satellites affecting climate change, which then cause these planets to basically burn all the residents on the planets alive. I looked it up, and it's Naboo was one of the planets, which we know that.
We know it makes sense.
Yeah, because he was very angry at the whole thing with whatever her name is, Natalie Portman. Help me out here.
Queen Amidala.
Queen Amidala. Yeah, she was from Naboo, so he's like, burn that place first. Okay, so then Vardos, which I don't know why the bar Vardos, but then this place called Burnin Khan, which is where Bill Burr's character apparently was serving, and he's listed as a Imperial sharpshooter. So we first see him in season 1, in the big jailbreak incident. He's got the double guns, and he's got the backpack gun that goes over his shoulder, which I was raving about how cool that was. But in this one, we get to see him actually use his sharpshooting skills with a rifle. While they're flying away on Slave One, he turns around and he goes, hang on a second, give me that. And holy cow, what a shot. But what do you think about the episode, first of all? Because I'm geeking out in all different directions.
Well, I am as well. There were a couple different things that I really want to need to talk to about. There was a major incident that happened that I did not expect to see happen.
The removal of the helmet.
The removal of the helmet. Not only the removal of the helmet. I get it that he switched into the Imperial helmet, so that's where he was wearing a helmet. But when it came to the time that he could not complete the mission and get the information he needs to get the kid back, he took that off, and you actually saw his face.
Yeah, and I read online that there was some nod to that, being that there was a conversation between him and Katie Sackhoff's character where she's like, really, Mandalorians take their helmet off? And he was like, Like she referred to him as like a rogue faction that never took their helmet off. Oh yeah,
right. They were like an old guard that's kind of like been passed by.
Yeah, she kind of regarded him as like a zealot of belief, and she's like, no, I'm the leader of the Mandalorians, and we take our helmet off. And you could see him sort of battling with that. Now, I did read online that there was a conversation that happened between the guy who plays him, Pedro Pascal, saying, I want more FaceTime. Like he wanted more FaceTime as a character, but he's like, but I've signed on for this character that never takes his helmet off. And apparently he was not happy about it. And there was a lot of contemplation over whether the Mandalorian was going to morph into the Boba Fett show. Like maybe they were writing it to then pass the guard off from him to Boba Fett. But then they announced that they have a Boba Fett separate show that's coming out. So,
right. Well, I can understand that. I didn't read that. Like I said, I didn't go in that far deep. But my thing was, I thought that it really was very kind of poignant, the fact that he did it because of the kid.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like you know, that's how important this kid is. Then, like he's willing to even go beyond his own personal beliefs.
Yeah.
Because he's made it as his duty now to make sure that this kid gets taken care of and possibly gets a chance to become the Jedi that it can be.
Yeah, and one of his biggest tenets is I'm never taking this off and no one's ever seeing me. And then he's like, all right, but if this is what it takes, then
exactly. That was the emotion that I got out of it.
Yeah, like he cares so much for this kid. And you get a little bit of that when he talks to Moff Gideon at the end with it. I thought that was cool. That was like sort of like a I'm coming to get you sucker kind of message.
Yeah, it was the Taken moment.
Yeah. I have a particular set of skills, and yeah.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah. The sharpshooter chick that's with him and Boba Fett, the Chinese girl, I don't know her name.
Ming Yang or something like that. I know she played in Shield, Agents of Shield. She was
right. She got her start. She was the voice of Mulan in the animated show.
Okay.
When they first made the cartoon movie, she was the voice of Mulan. And to be fair, Mulan came out as like a live action movie recently on Disney Plus.
Yeah, Christy wanted to watch it. We haven't watched it yet, but
so when they released it, this was like during the Corona pandemic, and they said that they were gonna, go to release on Disney Plus, and you could pay I think it was like $20 and watch it as like a way to see if people might be willing to pay money on a premium service to watch new movies. And I think a lot of people did it, but also if you think about it, like if you're taking your family to see a movie, you're going to potentially spend $20 or more for your family to see a new movie. So that's actually not a bad idea as like a parameter of the way things might go. And it's actually kind of a deal. Like if you have a family of 3 or 4, you're saving money by just spending the $20 to watch it.
Absolutely. I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. We were at work. I was explaining to them. I think that's the way. I think that's where it's going, because all the theaters are about to close.
Yeah.
They're not going to fully all close, but a lot of the major theater companies are closing.
But there are movies right now that are coming out Christmas Day that are saying in theaters only, like the Tom Hanks Western that's coming out. There's a few of them that are like in theaters only, kind of tagging it. But I'm like, okay, well, how's that going to work if we're in this stay-at-home order again? I mean, I don't know how that's going to play out. But again, to the parameter, I think it's a good idea. Now, I will say this. Disney has since released it to free viewing if you're a Disney Plus owner, that you can now watch it for free.
Well, it's basically like Redbox. I mean, you can go to the movies and watch it and pay $20, or you can wait till it comes out of Redbox and pay $1.
And there is a cameo. The lady we were talking about makes a cameo at the end of this movie. She's in a scene where she unveils the character Mulan. She's like, now introducing, like she hands her off, and my wife goes, hey, that's, she kind of fraps me and goes, that's her. And I was like, okay. But I watched the movie, okay, because so that we're kind of pivoting from Mandalorian to this just briefly, just to pin this up. Right. It's a crappy movie.
See, I heard that as well. Chrissy said she's heard it as well. Like she wanted to watch it, and we tried to open it up, and it was $20, and she's like, I don't want to pay $20 to watch it. And I told her, of course, with my thing, I said we can watch it. She's like, no. She's like, we'll just wait. And then when she told me later, she's like, I'm glad we didn't pay for it. I've heard it's really not that good.
Now, I think a lot of it was done because it was filmed in China. I think a lot of it has Chinese influence over the way the story was told, but it strays pretty far from the cartoon that we all kind of grew up to watch. And they even changed her name a little bit. Like in the cartoon, it was Fa Mulan, and then this is Hua Mulan, which right away I was just like, hey, did this get Hua? Hua? I mean, maybe it was like supposed to be pronounced that way all along, and then for the cartoon they did it wrong. I don't know. But then they added an element of magic to it. Like there's a sorceress in it, and she's got this chi that allows her to do things. And I'm like, you just changed the whole story. Like it was a decent story before about, a young girl who's going to become more than what she's supposed to do in life. That's a worthy story. That's one of the few stories that you hear about where a young girl doesn't have to be saved by a prince or whatever. It's the female empowerment story that we all talk about. We were talking about before with Ahsoka Tano, being this character, or on Vikings, you got Catherine Winterick playing that as Lagartha. You want that strong female power to be the one of saying, I'm going to do this, but also in a culture like China where women still don't have a voice and still don't have the power that they should have. They are slowly getting there, but it's so behind the times. And they did it in a cartoon back then, when back then I'm sure women had even less of a voice. I mean, that was, God, what was that, 98, I think? And
honestly, I can't even remember when it was. I have to be honest, I've never seen the whole movie through. I've seen bits and pieces, but I've never actually seen it all the way through.
This cartoon is garbage. I mean, not the cartoon. The live action is garbage. The only cast member, there's only 2 cast members in it that actually look like the characters in the cartoon, and that's the girl who plays Mulan and the guy who played the Khan. Okay, and they actually give him a different name in this. Like, I don't know. It's all weird. The bird that he has in the cartoon is actually a sorceress in this that transforms into and she's got like weird powers. It's just
that's very disappointing because I'll be honest with you, I was very pleased with the live action Jungle Book.
I've heard that. I haven't seen that yet.
It was really well done. I was extremely excited about it, and because it's one of Chrissy's favorite books and her favorite story was the Jungle Book. Yeah. So when they came out with the live action version, we watched it and it was fantastic. And so she was so excited about this one with the Mulan.
Well, and that's also because Jon Favreau was in charge of it.
Well, yeah, that has a lot to do with it as well, I'm sure.
I mean, he's got a gift for translating a script and a story into a visual effect that is worthy. And he also always plays nods to the original story, which this one really didn't. I mean, and again, I think it's highly because it was filmed in China and they were trying to do a lot of Chinese influence stuff. And it probably did really good over there as far as viewership. I mean, they were probably like, oh, this is great, whatever. I don't know. I didn't like it.
And to your saying, back to the, with Jon Favreau, you're right. I mean, like, one of my favorite things about watching The Mandalorian, other than the show itself, is at the end watching the concept art.
Yeah.
From the episode that just aired.
Well, and he's a visionary in the fact that he knows what he wants, like from the beginning, but he only does projects that he's a fan of, which is what you should do, right?
Right, because you have love for it, so therefore you're going to put yourself into it the way a fanboy would.
Like we talked about Dave Filoni being in charge of this filming process and the storyline process with Jon Favreau of The Mandalorian, and him being such a fan, and because of that, it translates into what you see. Jon Favreau did that with the Iron Man and the whole Avengers group. I mean, he was a fan of comic books. He was a fan of Iron Man. He was a fan of all of these things, and it translates into what you see and your enjoyment as a viewer. So back to Mandalorian. Okay, we just steered the ship really fast.
So how did you? So what was your feeling about him taking out the pirates?
Okay, so.
Because I mean, he had to do it to try to keep the mission on, but at the same time, he's kind of fighting with the pirates.
Right. I mean, they're essentially fighting for the same thing, and there is a moment where you get to see the TIE fighters come along and shoot them to save them from getting killed. And Bill Burr's character makes a comment. He's like, boy, I never thought we'd actually be rooting for the Empire to save us. And they're hauling this stuff, which is extremely explosive. And they have to go fast, and of course it makes it volatile and it's going to explode, and you have to slow down, which then it's kind of a neat, parameter of you're going to consistently have to fight these things. But he has to fight them without his armor, and you see him get hurt a couple times where they smash into him, and he's used to just blocking stuff. He's like, ow, ow! Like you could tell.
Yeah, you did see him kind of shake one or two where he's like,
yeah,
that actually hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of like you hear astronauts whenever they come home to Earth, their biggest problem is they constantly drop things because in space they're just used to letting go of things and it's there when they go to grab it again. When they come home, they just drop things. Well, the same thing if you're always wearing armor like that. Of course, that's a parameter that a lot of people wouldn't think of, but they thought about it enough to put it in there that he gets whacked on his arm and he's like, "That's not my armor," No,
I mean that's awesome. I'm like I thought about it, but the way you just explained it, they actually took the time to really make sure that part was just that one little nuance, but it made a difference.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty clever. Now we did have a lot of action in this and a lot of storyline moving through, and there is that moment where Bill Burr has to sit down with his former Imperial boss, and he's pissed off at him because of this Operation Cinder. And this guy apparently was the one in charge of his group whenever that happened.
And he was a cold-blooded son of a bitch.
And he had to watch thousands of his fellow troops die because this guy had an order, basically, and he just carried it out. And he's a real ruthless kind of guy. And there's that moment, also, very similar to the Han Solo Guido fight, where he's like, "Yeah, you know what?" And he just, bow! I was like, I cheered. I was like, yes! There is that moment in all of us where you kind of want the bad guy just to get it, and they deliver. I mean, and that was so cool.
Ironically, that human moment is what eventually led to his freedom.
Yeah. And it was also, the discussion over, because of what you just, like the guy says, because of what you just delivered, it'll make Operation Cinder look like nothing. And he was like, oh, yeah. Like you could just see the wheels turning like, I'm about to burn this place to the ground,
Yeah, and you could literally watch the switch. I mean, it switched immediately as soon as he started talking about it. It just.
And my wife is sitting next to me. She goes, "Why does Bill Burr get cast for this?" And I was like, "What did you just say?" Like, So anyway, but I had explained to her that Bill Burr and Jon Favreau were friends because of doing stuff together in the past. Jon Favreau is a fan of Bill Burr, his comedian, but also he had his chef show that he does on Netflix, and he's had Bill Burr on there with Dave Filoni, actually, one of the episodes. So, I mean, that kind of led a little nod to there's something going on here. But, Bill's got a film career. He's done movies and stuff like that and TV shows. I'm sure a lot of people remember him from Breaking Bad. But, yeah, I mean, he's done quite a bit of things. I don't know if you've ever seen it. He's got a cartoon show on Netflix called F is for Family. You'd love it. You'd love it. It's a lot of foul language. It's a lot of it's basically about him growing up and his dad and the crazy crap that happened, but it's hilarious the stuff they go through. You would love it. Like if you start watching it, let me know because I want to geek out with you about that.
Okay.
So
I'll definitely have to at least check it out for sure.
It's funny. I mean, but it lends itself to that idea of, don't wait for somebody else to make your thing happen. Make your thing happen. Like whatever it is you want to do, just make it. Just, screw it. What are you waiting for? I don't know if I talked about this on last episode, but Two Bears, One Cave is Tom Segura and Burt Kreischer. Well, they were shooting some content and apparently they were having a basketball contest and Tom hurt himself. He broke his arm and his leg in the process. They have been kind of leaning on to talking about it, but they're going to show the video on a live event, Two Bears, One Cave, that you can sign up for. It's like a premium event that you got to pay like $5 to watch, but they're going to show the video on New Year's. They're going to have like a live New Year's event with them talking and hanging out. And they're going to have a whole thing where they've decided to film. They're going to film porn videos, like separate porn videos, and then show them to each other. And they're supposed to be like comedy porn videos, but it's like they've gotten actual adult actresses and actors to play the parts, and they've scripted it and they've directed it, and they're just, I don't know what it's going to be, but they're
looking forward to it.
I don't know if I want to pay for it though. I don't know if I want to see that break. I don't know if I actually want to see the porn videos, but it's a hilarious idea of, I mean, we could just make it, there is that moment in life where you can go, I could just sit here and talk about it, or I could just grab whatever camera I have. Now, I said that to say this. I want to go back to Star Wars in a second, but I said that to say this. I've got this stupid Nintendo Switch thing that Greg talked me into getting. Animal Crossing, and I'm having an issue with trying to stream. Now, there's a thing called a capture card that I've looked up, and it's kind of expensive. I don't know if I should buy the $40 El Cheapo version or save up for the $40, or do what Casey Neistat says and says the best camera to use is the one you have in your hand. What do you have in your hand? Well, I got my phone.
Yeah.
And so I've actually been playing around with, I downloaded an app called IRUN webcam, and it connects to your whatever to your computer, and you can live stream from your phone. So I could actually use that with my iPad mini or with a camera. I could just use that thing and have it pointing at me. Even for Zoom, I could do it for Zoom. So it's something I'm playing around with. But it just goes out there to anybody listening right now who's thinking, yeah, but I want to do this, but I don't have the capability. Use what you got. Use what you got and just keep playing around with it and see what works. I mean, that's all you can do. So to pivot back, okay, we're doing a lot of pivoting because my brain kind of works like a spider web. There's lots of shows that have been announced.
I sent you that link that it came out. I think it came out on Tuesday or Wednesday this past week.
There's so many shows that are all Star Wars themed, where Disney Plus is just like, oh yeah, we realize we have an audience, and like it's almost like watching a major league hitter tighten up on his grip, and you go, oh, it's coming. Like you know what I'm saying?
That's the reason why they feel like they can raise the price a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, well, we released this, and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll pay that much for all this because that content's worth it.
And as a company, they have to figure out how to make money all the time. Like they have shareholders to answer to all the time, and their parks are right now under restrictions, and of course the cruise industry has taken a huge nosedive. So they're like, all right, what do we have? What do we have that's actually doing well? And if you look at their online reports, they show Disney Plus is the little growth chart is like people are buying Disney Plus like crazy. And they've got such a lineup of shows coming out, not only for Star Wars, but also in the Marvel universe. The WandaVision thing is coming out soon. But they announced several that I don't even know what they're about. I wrote them down today just to kind of have something to talk about. But Hayden Christensen is signed on to be Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan series. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be cool. Obi-Wan is a
lot of fanboys are making a big deal about that one on the web and stuff. But I'm like, I'm okay with it. I really think it'll be a great thing.
Well, so when he played Vader, Anakin/Vader in the prequel shows, I wasn't a fan. But also, it wasn't really, in my opinion, it wasn't really directed by someone who would have done to it what I think they should have. Like
they didn't get out of him what you think you could have got out of him.
Yeah, it was more of I'm sure they were on a budget, but they were more on we got to show the transition. We have to do this. We have to do it in this order. And if you have a series, you have not 2 hours for a movie. You've got, like we talked about before, you got a 20-hour movie you can show. You can spend 20 minutes on him talking about what he's thinking and what's going on, and you can have that element in it. But Ewan McGregor signing on, and they're already supposed to be starting filming in January, and there's going to be something in there about Darth Maul that's going to come back. I mean, thank goodness all these people are still alive. I mean,
I think eventually we're going to see a kind of a universe where they kind of blend a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're saying with this Obi-Wan, we're going to bring Darth Maul back. Well, with the Darth Maul, we've also got the Edgar Pritchard that's looking for him as well.
Yep.
So you're going to have some of the Rebel stuff coming in, and then of course you've got the Darksaber already in the Mandalorian. So I mean, there's going to be a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of blending of the characters.
Well, and the Bad Bunch. We're going to have that. The Bad Bunch is definitely linked into Ezra Pritchard and the whole, Rebels theme. The Bad Bunch, I mean, I was trying to think, how do I describe the Bad Bunch if I were to describe it to somebody who doesn't know what it is? And I really only have those as references to go by, as they were these, what do you call them? Just alternative stormtroopers that were just...
They were misfits.
They were misfits. They didn't fit in. They didn't follow commands. But they were all like special in their own special way.
Right. They were mutated versions of the clones. So they kind of like with the runts, they didn't fit a mold. But at the same time, they were kind of like they had specialty gifts.
Yeah.
That made them. So I kind of claimed them to more like an A-team kind of group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, like an A-team group of clones that were like, you know what? I don't agree with any of this. We're gonna fight them. Kind of idea. There's another one, Andor.
Andor, yeah, I wasn't sure about that one either. That was
there's a video. There's a video that you can watch, and it looks like it's the cast of Rogue One, which.
That's what it says. It says that it follows the same storyline as Rogue One, basically.
Yeah, when Rogue One came out, like my wife was like, I don't understand. Which movie is this? And I was like, this is before. I said, this is right before the movie that we saw in '77. She goes, what? And I was like, there's a scene where they're sitting there talking about getting the plans to the Death Star so they can destroy it. And the little, the senator lady with the blonde hair, she's got the white dress on. She's like, many lives are lost to deliver this. This is that story.
Right.
Like, this is that story. And she's like, oh, okay. And I was like, but it's a big deal.
That's
like
it's a big deal.
So
it was the whole point of the first movie. I mean, was to get those plans to the rebels so they could blow up the Death Star.
And it was a great movie. I thought he did a great job. But here's an opportunity for those characters you get to see more of them, especially the French guy who's the pilot. You get to see a lot more of him apparently because he's talking to the camera a lot. And when I watch the video. So Andor's coming out.
The one that really excites me is where is it? The Rogue Squadron.
Okay. Now, explain to me what Rogue Squadron is because I don't know.
Well, Rogue Squadron is just remember how in Rebels you had like Phoenix and then you had Gold Squadron.
Yeah.
The Rogue Squadron. They were like the elite.
Okay. So we'll have Wedge.
Wedge is part of the. Remember in the first movie when he wrote, Red Leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Rogue Squadron. Okay. They're the ones that went down to blow up the Death Star. They're basically like the Blue Angels kind of.
Okay.
And what this is, but what I saw in the video that I saw, the lady who is doing the directing of this, her father was an Air Force pilot and he was a fighter pilot, and she lost him. And she's been waiting and wanting to tell the story of a great fighter pilot movie, kind of like, like Top Gun kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, something that she really appreciates and enjoys, which is Star Wars.
Yeah.
So she's going to blend Star Wars and Top Gun basically in this series, apparently.
Well, so timeline wise, this is going to be also around the Rogue One time period.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. There's also a droid story.
Mm-hmm.
Which
that'll be interesting because we get to see, you've heard so many things about this person, used to be this owner and this owner. So now you get to kind of follow that timeline. I mean, we've seen a few of them.
I'm wondering if they're going to make that animated.
I would think you'd have to.
It would be a lot easier to be animated and
much easier and much cheaper. Much
cheaper. Yes. But also you can add more of everything to the characters and perfectly be fine with it. There is an episode of, there's an animated show. Is it The Resistance? I think is the name of it, where it's about pilots. It's all about Star Wars pilots. This is right during the Star Killer was introduced.
Okay, so
this is right during that period.
Kind of the sequels.
Yeah, and there's a group of pilots, and there's this guy who he along the way realizes that he has some kind of force powers, but it's like part of the storyline. But there's a couple of episodes there where the droids totally work together through the whole episode. They have to get together and finish some type of thing. But
it's just like we talked about in the last episode here. Possibly doing like a Rebels, actual live action.
Yeah.
But it would be really hard based on Chopper.
Yes.
It would be really hard to do a live action Chopper. I mean, the special effects and the money for that alone.
Well, I thought about that since we talked about it. Okay. And one of the things I thought about is that new cinematography thing that they have for shooting The Mandalorian with the video game graphics and the room. So you can use that to make him appear in scenes and he can interact and do all the things. And maybe that's what they'll do for their droid story. Maybe they'll use that video game engine to create these things so that they look like real things, even though there really doesn't have to be any people there.
Well, I agree with that, but I'll tell you what, man. It's like, and I think we've talked about it also on the last episode. I honestly got wrapped up in the shows like Rebel and Clone. I didn't even realize it was animated for a little while. I mean, so I mean, if they did it animated, they were doing it so well now that it wouldn't even come off as an animated series.
Yeah. Okay, so we know about Ahsoka, which they finally come out with the graphic with the big circle and her name stylized, which I thought, yeah, absolutely, that looks cool.
And then you got Lando.
You got Lando with Donald Glover coming back playing Lando Calrissian. How cool is that? I mean, you got a space pirate and he's the lead black guy in the movie. Come on. Why not have him be the lead? I mean, he's a heck of an actor and plays a heck of a Lando. I mean, if anybody watched Han Solo, you're like, this dude is Lando Calrissian.
I'm pretty sure that Donald Glover is actually a little nerd as well.
I think so too. I think he totally geeked out about playing the part. I mean,
I'm pretty sure wasn't he on that show Community? Wasn't that him?
I didn't watch Community. I don't know.
I think that was him.
I didn't watch Community. I don't know. But I mean, what a cool casting. Automatically, I'm in. I don't know what the Alkalite is.
I did not. I was trying to read a little bit, but I did not get enough on that one. It's apparently, according to this, it's like a mystery thriller. So it's gonna take into a new kind of a newer genre.
Now, see, we've talked about the fact that the movies want to take on a new approach and not have Skywalker be part of the story at all. And I wonder if this is going to be in the Rey timeline of, all right, now we're going to move the story this way. You know what I mean?
See, I'm not sure. Like I wasn't able to tell from that. It's like I'm looking at it right here. It says it's in the days of the High Republic era.
Okay, so this will be during that timeline.
It says it's a mystery thriller that will take the audience into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. So basically, it's going to be from the Sith side.
Maybe it's Palpatine, his comeback.
It's at the end of the final days of it. So I'm thinking it's going to be maybe right around Empire.
Okay.
Maybe we'll see more of what's going on behind the scenes on the dark side of the Force.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that commentary from Clerks where, he's like, yeah, I feel bad about all those stormtroopers. They're thinking, I got a government job, things are going great. And then all of a sudden they blow up my base and I'm dead. And, millions of lives lost. And for what? I thought that's a hilarious way to look at it.
Then of course, the guy who's there, who's a construction worker, and he's got a guy who's a friend's a roofer.
Yeah.
And he was roofing the mob boss's house.
Yeah.
And he got shot. He knew the danger involved, but yet the money was too good.
Yeah.
That was a good scene. Clerks was a good movie.
I love that.
Kevin did a fantastic job with that little $20,000 movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I have an idea. What do I shoot it with? The camera I have.
I'm pretty sure they did. I mean, I think they used the camera from like film school.
Yeah.
And the thing is like they filmed most of the stuff they filmed at night because he was working at that store during the day.
Yeah, it was pirate filming. I mean, just, hey, I'm here. Let's go ahead and bring the camera crew in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's go ahead and film this thing. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I'm geeking out about Gina Carano playing Cara Dune, getting into the character of the, I'm working my way up in this whole, I'm the new sheriff in town kind of deal, but also she's like, Mando's my boy, like whatever you need, dude,
Oh yeah, well, I mean, they created kind of a bond already anyway, and she's got, even though she's a bad girl, like hard, she's got a little softness for the kid too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She's gonna help him no matter what.
Now, again, is there like you've seen the fan stuff on Facebook and stuff like that? Is there the possibility that this is all being set up so that Grogu grows up to be the Darksaber wielder? Because in the fan fiction, it all talks about how the true heir to the Darksaber is Mandalorian and Jedi, both.
Right, because that's who created the original Darksaber, was the first ever Mandalorian accepted into the Jedi Order.
Yep. And here you got a young kid who, through lineage, we all give him the same respect that we give Yoda, even though there's no definite correlation. We give him the same nod to, oh, this kid's like, he's going to be the bomb. But he's being raised by a Mandalorian. And if there's a certain point where he puts on some armor and then you see him hold the lightsaber, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Mandalorian by birth or Mandalorian by oath, I guess, is the way you have to kind of decide on that, in my opinion. There's already fan art out there of like him wearing a helmet with his ear sticking out and holding the saber. Oh God, I got to see this.
And then having the jetpack on. I was like,
thank you very much. Now I have to look that up once we're done with this, because I got to see that.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine, like, of the scenes you've seen of Yoda like sword fighting? Can you imagine that flipping around, and also he's got
a Darksaber and a Mandalorian
and knee cannons?
that would almost be unfair to anyone ever that has to attack them.
He's so fast, and I can't even shoot him. And when it bounces off of him,
that's like having the star in Mario Brothers.
Yeah. It's sort of like God mode,
Yeah, from
like Neo from the Matrix, or Lucy from Lucy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're all going to die now. Of course, I thought that as soon as Boba Fett entered the scene last week. I mean, I was like, oh, it's about to get ugly real fast. Yeah.
But no one expected knee rockets.
Yeah, least of all me. But I was so pleased.
Fantastic.
Oh man. So I was frantically taking notes because I was like, there's a lot I want to talk about. Okay, so this is the Stuff I Heard podcast, and I have some other stuff I want to talk about that you probably haven't seen. I'm a big Jennifer Garner fan, okay? And back in the day when she played Alias, I was like, oh, this chick is awesome. Like, it was a cool lead role, a double agent kind of playing this spy type character who was just, she could kick everybody's butt. But she was a good character to follow. Well, we got to see her play Elektra, and that was a really crappy movie. And then she got involved with, what's his name? Ben Affleck, and they had a family and whatever. And then she started doing some family movies where she was the mom or she was the sister of the character and that kind of thing. And I was like,
a lot of Hallmark style movies.
Yeah, I'm really ready for her to get back to her roots. I want her to kick butt again. And we had a lot of people come up and take that role and sort of become that part. But she was my original, catalyst of, kick butt girl. So she had a movie that came out, I guess, back in 2019 called Peppermint. Horrible name. And turns out also horrible movie. There's nobody in the cast that you recognize. So they didn't put any money into it. The story is kind of a loose story. I'll give you the rundown. Basically, she's a mom and her husband is this guy who backs out of a deal to drive some freight for somebody. It turns out to be a drug deal that he didn't know had anything to do with any kind of drug cartel. So they come by and they kill her family. They shoot her in the process, but she lives. Then they go to court. She can identify them because she sees them in the drive-by in the car. She identifies them because they have face tattoos. It's like, oh yeah, that guy and that guy and that guy. So they go to court, and the judge basically throws the case out because he's scared for his life. All of the people who are supposed to be part of anything basically just let them go. She's angry, so she gets arrested for causing a disturbance because she jumps over the thing and tries to strangle the judge in the whole process. She gets tasered. They go to kill her in the ambulance, and she breaks out and gets away. Well, she then disappears for like 10 years, and when she comes back, she starts killing everybody. So my wife walks in the room and she goes, is she supposed to be like Jason Bourne? I was like, no, this is more like Charles Bronson. She's like, what?
Yeah, she's more like the Punisher.
I said, this isn't a we trained this person our whole lives. This is I've had enough and everyone's going to die now. Like, she just literally busts in the scene and is just like, okay, I'm taking everybody out. And it was just, the action was cool. The way they, played it out towards the end was pretty cool, but the movie's terrible. Now, the same time on Netflix, because it comes out around the same time, was this new movie with Jessica Chastain. She's this redhead girl, kind of looks like Ron Howard's daughter, Bryce Harper. She's one of the people who directed one of the Mandalorian shows. Anyway, Jessica Chastain is supposed to be this military trained person who is, again, this kick butt kind of girl. Now, this one had money thrown at it because it's got a cast. It's got people you recognize in it right away. John Malkovich is supposed to be like her trainer from the day, and you got Colin Farrell in it. He's supposed to be the bad guy in the show. I mean, it's got some people. That's big names. Gina Davis is supposed to be her mom. I mean, you know, you see them going through stuff, and you're like, hey, I recognize a lot of these people. Like, and it's a much better movie. It's better told story. She's a flawed character. She's got some drinking problems. Common is in it. I mean, you know, we watched him kick butt in the last John Wick movie, where apparently he went through a lot of martial arts training.
He was also really good at Smoking Aces.
He's a good actor. I mean,
I agree.
And that voice, man, when he enters the scene and he's just like, hey, baby. Like, he could just say, hey, baby. You're like, that guy's a star. Like, you know, he's got delivery. You know, I don't know what it is. It's his presence. But he's just got, you know, he's got that star quality. And when he entered the scene, I was like, oh, this is good. Like, and his character's flawed. I mean, there's a whole thing with them. But it's worth watching. So I say yay on Eva, EVA. Okay. And boo on Peppermint. So
all right.
That's my to and fro. And boo on Mulan.
He even had to bring it back up to give it a thumbs down, folks.
Listen, Mulan is the type of movie that if you were to drive over it, you'd back up and go, wait, did I drive over that enough? And you drive over it again just to make sure that you drove over it. You're like, yeah, here we go. That's one more time. You back up and you drive over a third time. You're like, maybe I should Instagram it so people know to drive over this when they see it, you know. And I feel bad for Disney because they definitely sunk a crap ton of money in that movie. And I don't think they got their investment back, but, you know, it's a pile of garbage.
Well, the thing is, they probably did get their money back. I mean, if they've already moved it to the free side of Disney Plus, I mean, they got enough people to purchase it.
They probably had no choice.
Now, what I'm saying is right. You know, but it's no different than like you were talking about earlier. You go on a date, not even considering a family. You go on a date to a movie. Mm-hmm. You're going to spend $20 for the tickets, plus, you know, popcorn, drink, whatever the case may be. And then, you know, like my problem with movies, Chrissy can't sit still for 2 hours without going to the bathroom or needing a cigarette. Yeah. So we don't go to the theater. Yeah. So, you know, it worked out perfect for us that they're going to start doing it like this. Yeah. And most people nowadays have a very high def television in their home. Oh, yeah. Where, you know, I mean, they may not have the surround sound, but some people do have the surround sound for their living room. It's just not theater, you know, THX, whatever the case may be. Right. But I mean, I imagine they made, I mean, you got to imagine you bought it, right? No. Oh, you waited? I just waited till it was free. Okay. Well, you got to imagine there's a lot of people that probably didn't know that it was going to be free eventually and went ahead and bought it immediately. I really considered buying it when it came out just because I wanted to support the whole genre. But since this happened and my money got froze up, I was like, maybe not. Maybe we'll just wait. Well, I am glad in retrospect that you did not get to pay for it and you Me too. Your money. Because I'd have been really pissed off if I'd have spent money to watch that pile of garbage. And don't get me wrong, I've paid money to watch piles of garbage in the past, and I've been pissed off about those. I mean, yeah, we watched the Island of Dr. Moreau, and that was paid for. I didn't pay for it. But, okay. I felt bad the first time I saw it, and then the second time someone else rented it, and I told them not to, and I felt bad for them spending the money just to rent that movie. I did rent it. I will say, I guess I did pay for it in a sense. You see, people. Some of you aren't old enough to understand. There used to be places where you could go and rent movies. Yeah, back in the olden days, you know, just at the verge of color, you know, whenever life went from black and white to color, we could rent movies from these places, these little box stores. It was so interesting. You'd meet your friends there. You'd be like, hey, you rent a movie? Me too. What are you watching? Hey, maybe you come over to my house. We watch that. And you rent that tomorrow. Okay, yeah, let's do that. You know. And of course, you had the one where, you know, there was only one of the new video game. And so both wanted it. So you decided just to stay over at their house that weekend and play the whole video game the whole weekend. What was the story before Netflix and chill? There was Blockbuster and Bang. I hadn't heard that one. Oh, I didn't invent it. I'm just repeating it. Sorry, Mom. So anyway, my mom. On a quick note, go ahead.
My mom called me to tell me that she finally caught up with watching The Mandalorian, and she listened to our podcast, and so she was like, "That was really good." I was like, "Yeah." So,
well, that's awesome.
There is that additional element.
I didn't know Mom was watching the Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, she's into it. Actually, my wife's parents were into it too because they grew up. One of their favorite genres is westerns, and my wife was telling her that it's that The Mandalorian was a lot like a space western, and they commented right away when they first started watching. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is totally like a space western." And her mom is into space movies. I mean, she likes Star Trek and Star Wars, and so she was happy with it all along. But like, my wife made a comment. She goes, "I'll be honest with you." She goes, "This episode didn't have Grogu in it," and she goes, "I'm kind of watching the show now just to see Grogu." And she goes, I know that you were." Like this last episode, she's like, "I know you were geeking out because Bill Burr's in it and it was action packed and all this stuff." She goes, "But it didn't have Grogu in it." So I was like, "Eh." And I was like, "Really?" She goes, "It just wasn't for me." She goes, "There's something about the kid in it." And she goes, "And it would change," like this was her opinion, "it would change the dynamic of the show for me if the kid wasn't part of it." And I was like, "That's interesting." She goes, "Think about it." She goes, "A lot of your audience out there is not like super fandom Star Wars like you are." She goes, "A lot of them are just like, oh, this is really cute with this little baby." And it is cute, but it is that element of sort of he is this warrior type figure, and here you have this little squishy thing that's also a warrior, but you just don't know it. Like it's the weird, he has to protect him, but in a weird way, he can protect him. Like you don't see it coming, but like, it's like the secret strength of the show is the tiny thing that you think is being protected the whole time.
I get that, but I mean, also, you got to whenever you're outside of the fanboy sites and like our personal, interactions back and forth on Facebook, most of the comments about the show are about Grogu or about the kid or about Baby Yoda. I mean, I can see where she's coming with that. I mean, me personally, I was sold from the moment they said Mandalorian. I mean, that was me. But I can see where all the new people coming in that are not fanboys of the original Star Wars and the Star Wars universe things as we are, they're sucked in by the kid.
Yeah.
So if the kid's not there, they feel like the show's not really that good. And
George Lucas kind of did a nod for that in the original, Star Wars trilogy, where he had the droids or the Ewoks were the cute element of the show. He was like, I kind of want to draw kids in. Like that was part of his idea all along is, let's tell this story, but let's also make it appealing for everybody to kind of watch.
And to that point is they tried to do the same thing with Jar Jar. A lot of people hated Jar Jar, and I understand that. But you understand that Jar Jar was written for the kids.
And there's an element where, in this last episode, Bill Burr's character asked him, he says, "What, are you afraid you take the helmet off and realize you're a Gungan?" Which I didn't catch the first time. I watched it the second time, and I caught it. I was like, did he just call him a Gungan? Like, that's hilarious. He's like, "You're going to take the helmet off, and we're going to see Jar Jar Binks. Are you afraid you're going to take it off and you're a Gungan?"
I thought about that the other day too. Whenever you were talking about on the last episode, we were talking about how on the Clone Wars you can throw away anything underwater.
Yeah.
And I was like, you really just don't like the Jar Jar character.
But it's a pointless episode. Like all of the water stuff in that there's enough. It doesn't move the story along.
It doesn't move the storyline. It's still a good story.
But none of those characters come back.
I agree with that. It doesn't move the storyline.
None of those characters come back. None of those characters have anything to do with any other thing other than their individual episode. It's a wasted episode. I mean, it's a filler. So, I mean, we talked about episode 2 of season 2 being a filler episode with the little frog lady, but I keep thinking
something's going to come from that. I think.
I keep thinking the frog lady or those X-wing fighter guys or those spider things are going to come back at the last episode.
Well, now that's an interesting thing because I was actually watching. Again, I told you I was rewatching Rebels because my Disney Plus might not be going anywhere because Chrissy just got an email from Verizon. They are possibly going to offer her for $4 extra a month. We get to keep Disney Plus we get Hulu Live, and we get ESPN Plus.
Dude.
for $4 more because of Verizon. So there's a possibility I may get to keep my Disney Plus. But nonetheless, I've been trying to catch up on the end of Rebels just because I spent so long since I watched it and really, paid attention to the storyline. Are those not the same spiders that were on the planet when they had the chopper base?
I think they're different because I read in some fan comment about the show, maybe it was on like Slater.org or something like that, where they were talking about the canon universe and the characters, and they were like, these spiders are unlike anything that's ever been seen before because they had something to do with their composition and the way their mouths were formed and the way that they would strike. And I don't know, it was like we're introduced to a new species because of.
I just remember
okay.
In one of the episodes they go down a cave and there's a bunch of pods. Like in that episode episode 2, where there was a bunch of pods and he was eating one of the pods, and that's what woke up the spider. So it kind of looked like
it was a spider. It was a baby spider.
Yeah, it looked like it was very similar to like the same they obviously the spiders there look more like spiders. The ones on the Rebels had their eyes down below and big giant. But the pod thing looked kind of. So I was wondering if it was kind of similar or not.
Yeah, it's different.
So. But yeah, so that was that. That was really my question on that one. There was one other thing I wanted to ask, but I completely just blanked. So you go ahead, and I'm going to shut up for a second.
Okay, so Coastal Carolina never ceases to amaze us. Okay.
No.
This past weekend,
minute 43 to go, and they come back and win the game. I mean,
this past weekend they went to Alabama to play Troy, which I love Troy, by the way, because I watched Troy play many a top team in the past and have defeated a few top ranked teams. And they did a story about Troy. Troy has on their locker room a big sign that says, "We will play anybody, anywhere, anytime." And I love that mentality of being your slogan. That's kind of what BYU said whenever they got the call that Thursday to say, "Hey, would you be willing to play Coastal Carolina in Conway?" They're like, "Yeah, I mean, we're ready to play anybody." Okay, so
right. They figured they were going to come in, take them down, and then that would help their ranking because they would have beat a top 15 team.
Right. So Coastal beats BYU, then they go to Alabama to play Troy, and it comes down to the very end. But like you said, with a minute 48 left, Troy goes up by 3 points, and you're like, "Oh crap, Coastal's going to lose to Troy," which. I mean, for, all the kudos to Troy for being a battling team. And I'm sure Coastal did not overlook them. But again, Troy is a decent team, always a decent team. I don't care who you talk about playing them. They're always going to come and bring it. And especially towards the end of the season, I mean, this is their seniors playing. This is the last time a lot of them will ever get to play. They're putting it all out there, which I saw some great football Saturday. But Coastal, with 45 seconds, they marched down the field and
scored with a pass over the middle, and he just broke. I mean, he caught him in stride and
broke tackles, broke everything. Yeah.
No, I mean they did
3 or 4 plays, and ended up winning the game. I'm like, good for you. That's awesome.
My thing is if they end up winning their conference championship, which they should have no problem because they've already beaten the team I do believe they're playing. I believe they will end up in a major bowl. Now, they're not going to end up in the playoff. They're not going to get a chance to play in the playoff.
Right.
The only team that had a chance to go to the playoff was Florida, and they blew their chance against the LSU team that just looked like the national champions from last year.
Well, okay, so we all know that Ohio State and Michigan have always been like their rival teams against each other. I mean, coaches have been fired because they couldn't defeat the other team. They could have a perfect season, and if they lost to the other team, they're like, we need to get rid of this coach. Like, it was one of those kind of deals. I grew up hearing about Bo Schembechler being the coach up in Michigan, and, he would battle Ohio State all the time, and they finally fired him because he got on a trend of losing to Ohio State, and they were like, we got to get somebody better in here. Okay, now you got Jim Harbaugh, who, let's face it, has not been the coach we'd hoped he would be there. He was a really good coach in Stanford, but he's turned into kind of a garbage coach here lately. They backed out of playing against their rival because they said they had too many COVID cases. Now, in doing so, they then dropped Ohio State out of the national championship discussion because they didn't have that game, they couldn't move on to the next round.
According to the Big Ten, they had to have 6 games under their belt to be able to play in the championship game.
And we have friends who are diehard Ohio State fans, and they're like, I think he did that on purpose just to screw Ohio State out of being even in the fight to play. And I was like, that would be really crappy of him to do, but I could see him being that kind of guy. It was
100% done that way, but at the same time, The Big
Michigan
Ten
would have lost.
The Big Ten was not going to allow them not to be able to play in the championship game. So they said that they would have won the game. They would have been in the championship game even if they lost the game against Michigan. So they changed the rules for Ohio State.
Now they have a game with Ohio State playing somebody.
Ohio State has to play Indiana.
Northwestern.
Northwestern. Yes.
So you got an Ivy League school in Northwestern.
Basically.
Who's still a decent football team. I've watched them play a few games this year. They're actually really good. But they're going to play Ohio State, and they're going to get slaughtered by Ohio State. I'm sorry, Northwestern, but you're just not that caliber of a team. But Michigan would have gotten their butts handed to them if Ohio State had showed up with the team they have this year and the team that Michigan has this year. It would have been a 62-0 kind of victory. I mean, it would have been a slaughter. I did see some really good football this week. One of the best games I've seen possibly in the last 10 years was Nebraska against Minnesota Golden Gophers. These guys battled each other like it was their last morsel of meat on the earth. I mean, they fought tooth and nail every down. And I mean, kudos to both teams, kudos to both schools. You guys, you put on one heck of a game. And I mean, it was amazing to watch. It was everything you'd hope for in football. It was a dance. It was martial arts. It was beautiful. It was a struggle, and it was awesome. So great game, guys. Totally appreciate it. If games are supposed to be entertainment, I was entertained. I mean, it was amazing.
Wow.
The Army-Navy game was on the same time, and it was boring because of the fog made it more boring, but also they were playing crappy. But the fog made it just unwatchable. And that's why I flipped it over. When I flipped it over, I was like, like it was one of those breathtaking kind of shows. I was just like, man, what a game. So thank you to Minnesota Golden Gophers and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. You guys battled it out. That was fun.
Wow, now I wish I would have saw that game.
Yeah, I got lucky. I mean, and it's one of those things where once you see it, you're just like, I wonder if anybody else saw this. Like, this was amazing. You know? And I'm sure a lot of people felt that way about, a multitude of games that they watched, but that was just the one that caught my eye. I was just like, holy crap. I think one of the only other games that I've seen that was that caliber was like Green Bay versus San Francisco, like 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, it was one of those just battles the whole way through. I mean, every ounce of energy and effort in everybody. Like, nobody left anything behind. They left it all out on the field. Am I fully unplugged? Ooh, it just made a noise.
It did make a noise.
I hope I recorded my volume. Your microphone has now been changed. Oh, no. What just happened? All right, so if you're catching this part of it, then I've cleaned it up in post, or I haven't, so we'll just go with it.
I mean, we've got recording up here on the screen. So
I don't know. Could you hear me?
I could hear you.
Now completely. You're muted. What happened?
I'm muted. I'm not muted on my side.
What did I do? All right. Something happened here.
I don't see mute on my side.
I don't hear you. All right. I'm going to wrap this up. I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear you, but I'm going to wrap this up. I'm having technical difficulties. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Please tune in next week for the Double J Jedi Talk. We'll have the final episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. I got my Millennium Falcon shirt on. You got your Darth Vader voodoo mask looking shirt on. Thank you, everybody who's listening. Thank you to Josh for being on the episode. Appreciate it, brother. And I love you.
Love you guys.
If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps the channel succeed. And it helps me know that you guys are listening so that I keep doing them. So thanks. Take care. And as always, cue the cow.